We published a book in 2013, and this book, Visions of Hope, is a collection of reflections by young theologians. It's with Orbis Books, the publisher of the Maryknoll that Maryknoll runs, and we have theologians from different contexts write about their visions of Vatican II. This book in 2014 was awarded the first place by the Catholic Press Association in the United States for books about Vatican II. In 2013, we organized hosted the Boston Council meeting of ICMICA on the theme of prophets on the borders. And since then, we've been talking about how we can form more of a cohesive movement in the United States. In 2014, we organized the UN study session with IMCS on the theme of Catholic social teaching and water. And then this past year, we had two events. One was a conference in New York on human trafficking and the global supply chain. So looking at the themes of how the economy can promote human slavery today, which has been a major theme of Pope Francis. And then most recently, and this is perhaps very exciting because it's so recent, a group of about 20 young leaders met for a study session on the theme of being church at the peripheries. And this meeting was very hopeful for me in that people came from 4 or 5 different places, and we're trying to commit ourselves to rebuilding a movement, a cell-based movement, if you will, of small group reflections for social action. In North America, there are many challenges, I think, facing the church, facing social action organizations, facing civil society. The strong influence of individualism, I think, makes it very difficult to organize movements, especially for younger generations. There's very little time to devote to commitments. There's really, and then I think the society is built to prevent people from organizing. And the companies don't want people to ask questions as to where their clothing comes from, so it's very challenging to organize a movement, a real movement here. The church has a lot of activities, but usually they're not participatory movements. Usually they're run by some professionals. I think the strength that Pax Romana brings is this commitment to participation. In Canada, the Canadian student movement is still doing very well. In the United States, unfortunately, the student movement is in the process of either closing or something new has to come about here. At our recent study session that we organized of young leaders, it was very interesting. The theme that we picked was, what does it mean to be the church at the peripheries? We looked at the peripheries in 2 levels. The first level is the peripheries within the society. In the United States, even though it's one of the wealthiest countries on the planet, there are many divisions and many borders, whether they be the racial borders. There are still a lot of racial tensions and injustices. There's also economic injustices and economic divisions. So there are lots of peripheries, lots of borders within our society that need to be addressed. And the church, in some places, is doing a very good job, especially in the area of addressing and welcoming migrants. In the United States, there's a new anti-immigrant sentiment that I'm afraid will only continue to grow. But at the same time, the theme of being church at the peripheries has another meaning. Many of us who are committed to the social teachings of the church, who are committed to liberation theology, many of us who are committed to the church vision of Vatican II, feel at the borders of the church. I think, and that's very difficult for young people who give their lives to the church, or seen this with many generations of students in IMCS who work very hard for the student movement and get no financial support from bishops or others for their activities. There's another level that we discussed at our recent study session where There are people in the church, maybe they are gay and lesbian Catholics. They are people who feel they disagree with some parts of the church's teaching. I think Pope Francis is inviting us to a new way of being church, where we welcome everyone on the edges. I think that theme of peripheries is a really helpful way to understand the realities of the church in the United States today, and as well as the social civil society here.